Okay, we're good now.
Call to order.
All right, 5:45. Roll call. Chair Martin Gilmore.
Present.
Vice Chair Kyle Conrad.
Present.
Catalina Johnson.
Present.
Erica Creasel. Here. Stacy Potash.
Here.
Shane Smith is not present. Angelica Diorio.
Present.
And Angelica, because we are down, you do get to vote tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. And Councilmember Chelsea Nunacamp is not present and excused. English liaison Emily Ancona is not present. Excused, we have Leah Moran. And staff, we have Director Christina Underhill, Library and Cultural Arts Manager Bethany Lafferty, Event Supervisor Tony Arnoldy, and we are expecting Deputy City Manager Tim Dodd to join.
Great. So now we need an approval of the minutes from September 4th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
Since Tim has not joined in, we can just proceed down the agenda, and then when he does join, we'll.
Okay. So was he under public comment then?
We actually, I had him just
Presentation.
under, well, I guess old business, so.
Okay. So new business, is there any new business?
There is
No?
not.
Okay, so then old business is this signal wrap and crosswalk program update. So it looks like that's you all.
So that one will wait for Tim, so we'll move on to artist reception.
Artist reception. So we do have one barrel reserved October 15th. And again, that's 6:30. I think we have open doors, so at like 6 for folks to kind of wander in. We do need an RSVP. I think you RSVP, but it would be nice if others want to join us. And that just went out, so if you might have, like me, gotten it, and it looked like a City of Inglewood, so don't miss it. The invite came in, and there's a little RSVP button, so please do that. And then we're doing appetizers. Everyone needs to purchase their own drink if they want drinks, and I think that's the only real update, unless, Tony, you can think of something else. I can't think of anything else for that.
I think the time on it says 6:30 to 7.
Yeah, I think people can show up at 6 from the commission, but I think 6:30 is like when the event officially kicks off,
Okay,
right?
yes, and we did the invitation 6 to 7:30, but I can follow up with,
Or 6
With-
to
yeah,
I think it's fine.
does that work?
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I'll confirm with Leah, but
Would you just tell me what it's under, like I either missed it or I accidentally deleted it, so if you could just tell me what it's under?
Well, and I was gonna say I can resend it tomorrow. Like
Would you do
from-
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a sign of genius to
Okay.
RSVPs.
Perfect.
but it came as like it came from the City of Inglewood Cultural Arts Commission,
Okay.
but it was like it had the invite in there. So if you, when I had to go look for it again, I just put in cultural arts in Inglewood and it came
Okay.
up.
You can also search artist.
Oh yeah, artists too.
I'll be there.
We like to that.
I love me a glass of wine and some art. so.
I had one question about that. So the last artist reception we did for the horses, you guys did little like table toppers. Is that something that you guys want to do again?
I would love it. Currently I don't have the information to do them, but if you had the information and wanted to get those, I think it would be awesome.
I can connect with Debbie.
Okay, that'd be great, because it would be nice to maybe do similar where we have one of each, maybe what they submitted as their, maybe not pictures of on the boxes, because I don't know that we have it, but we have what they submitted, so that could be on the tabletop.
Yeah, and then like we can do double-sided,
Yeah,
and then are you guys okay with getting some of the see-through plastic?
We definitely have the money for it based on what we got back, I think. Leo is, she's not here, but based on what we got from them, we have more money to get those things. So we
Okay.
can cover that. If that's what you're asking, there's money there for that stuff. That's why we went a little over the food budget for decorations and.
Okay, so I can get with you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And Tim has joined, so we can,
Flip over to this.
yeah, that works.
Great.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, sorry about that. I had to run home, so I wasn't sure how quickly you'd get through the other ones. So I guess it was pretty quick. But yeah, thanks for having me back. And thanks Debbie for having the slides up. So I think a few of you actually joined the commission after I presented last time. So there are a few slides in here that are more background info. I wanted those in just so I can go make sure everybody has baseline information. But I'll spend more time kind of on the proposal we have in front of you tonight, which is basically 4 thematic calls. So if you remember the last time I was there, we talked about coming back and doing a potential second call, one that maybe had a theme. So for you to consider tonight, we've had some internal meetings and we have a proposal for you to share. So next slide, please, Debbie. Yeah, so the goal really is, and last time, 2 times ago, when I presented to all of you, as some of you will remember, I went over how, as you know, public art fits into many other goals cities have, including things like safety, like economic development, a sense of place, pride in place. So when I first made this proposal, I looked at a variety of other similar programs in other cities around the US and around the world. And so the goal statement here really reflects that this is really a partnership. It's about engagement, and really fits into placemaking goals the city has. I love to travel, and I've noticed I've noticed more and more signal wraps in cities that I've been to, some crosswalks, but more signal wraps, and really think it's just one other way that people can make a space inviting. So next slide, please, and also tie it into the history and the culture of an area. This slide is more focused, and this is a reminder slide from 2 times ago, but this one's focused more specifically on crosswalks. There is a lot of data. This was a study that was done a couple years ago by Bloomberg Philanthropies, or one of the Bloomberg groups, I should say, that actually found several safety benefits relative to having creative crosswalks. As you may know, the city is working towards something called Vision Zero, which is basically it's an international program that's focused on zero fatalities and serious injuries caused by traffic-related crashes and incidents. And so this data here basically shows that having these crosswalks has achieved, based on this data, some pretty strong goals around pedestrian safety. So next slide, please. So just as a reminder for everybody, this was actually something that started back in 2019. So I started with the city in 2020. In 2019, the previous public works director started working with another board made up of community members like your board, called ETAC, which is the Inglewood Transportation Advisory Committee, to figure out guidelines for crosswalks. They were approved in the fall of 2019, so 5 years ago now, by council. And then, as you'll recall, those of you who are members, worked with the MOA, the Museum of Outdoor Arts, to launch a pilot program, which was done in that year, and there were a couple that resulted. And then this past summer, we worked with all of you to do another call and to relaunch this program. We've learned a lot, we've collected a lot of data, so I'll be talking about some ideas on how to move forward. But we had 7 that are about to be installed, thanks to your efforts. So next slide, please. Yeah, so this is something that really, to work, it needs to have a lot of partnerships. These are just some of the partners that we've either worked with or plan to work with. It depends obviously on, where things are located. I do have a slide in a little bit that shows a map with signal boxes that are covered and that are currently available. The vast majority are on the Broadway corridor, but there are a few that are located in residential neighborhoods and things like that. We have worked with the EDDA very closely on public art that is in their area, which really stretches along the Hamden corridor, basically from the Civic Center into the Hospital District to the Cherry Hills border. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here's our proposal. So I'm sorry, I'm outside, and of course there's a car alarm going off. So what we did is we looked at several other cities that have similar programs like this, and we wanted to get an idea of what a thematic call would look like. And we basically found a variety of ideas for thematic calls. Some relate to history, some relate to specific events that happened in cities. Some relate to sports, some relate to veterans and recognizing veterans and their contributions. Some relate to famous people. When I was in Detroit this past summer, there were several that were dedicated to individuals, mostly sports heroes from Detroit. When I was in Savannah, also this past summer, there were several that were historic in nature, that were mostly actually photographs that were then wrapped on boxes. And they were Savannah's a quite an old city, but they were tied to events that happened like in that general area, which was really cool. For example, there was one outside of a library, and it is still a library, but it was a Carnegie-funded library from 100 plus years ago. And so there was actually a photo of members of the library board from the early 1900s that was on a wrap. So the proposal that we're going to make to you, and ultimately this is your decision. So I do want to just stress this is all this is tonight is a recommendation by staff. It's based on data, it's based on an analysis, based on internal discussions. But we really want you to weigh in on this, and you may have totally different ideas on how you want to handle this. So we're proposing that if you do a second call, and we do have proposed dates and a process and everything like that, that you consider doing it based on our Uniquely Inglewood campaign. By a little bit of background, Uniquely Inglewood is really a campaign that's just about that. It's about Inglewood being a special and unique place. A lot of it is focused on our economy, and specifically our local economy. And some of these places have moved, but Inglewood, since I've been in the area, has had a bonsai store, an exotic bird store, all kinds of very unique places. And we don't want to lose our cultural identity, but we want to embrace it and we want it to thrive. And we've also been very successful. As you may have seen, there's been a couple articles in Westworld and a few other publications about how we've actually gotten several business, or I'd say 3 or 4 businesses, which is several, from the South Broadway corridor where I used to live in Denver, to come down into Inglewood. Things like Fancy Tiger Crafts. There's a company I always forget the name of that's basically a bookstore and cafe, Mutiny, I think it's called. I was just in, saw they're closing on Broadway on Sunday. They're going to be moving to Inglewood. So this campaign is really all about making us a very unique place. And so we propose this to you for a couple reasons. One is we didn't want to create, not that we couldn't create something from scratch, but we have a few campaigns that are ongoing. So we thought it may make sense for this project to tie into something that we already have in place. Number two, there's also kind of a placemaking theme that we have called Inglewood as a wooded nook. And we did look at that one as well, but the reason we're not proposing that to you is we thought that could work well if we have some signal boxes in parks or near parks. There are a few, but when I get to the slide around the map, you'll see why we thought it made sense maybe to focus on commercial corridors, specifically the Broadway corridor. Also, one other reason, 2 other things I wanted to share. One is that I think it's on your agenda later, but you may be aware that there's already a Uniquely Inglewood mural campaign, so that would fit nicely into that. And then the final thing we wanted to share is this is a theme, but it's also a relatively general theme. So we feel like it gives enough leeway to allow artists to be creative. There could have been, the call could still be, hyper specialized and specialized on a different type of industry or area. Obviously, we want to stay away from, brand promotion and company promotion. But that's one concept. If we did history, we could focus, for example, on our history as Carnation City. We could focus on our history related to the gold rush. So the call definitely could be specific, but our recommendation really is one that is somewhat of a guide. It would help us kind of with, and also honestly, I feel like some of the other murals some of the other wraps that will be installed kind of fit into this as well. We felt it would give enough creative license, so to speak, for artists. So the next slide, please. So this is the color palette that's being used for the murals, which is why we're proposing that we keep it if we did signal wraps as well. Next slide. Yeah, so here's our proposed timeline. If CAC does agree with doing a call, whether it's this or another thematic call, we are prepared just because of the work that we've done to kind of, develop muscle memory around this. We're prepared to launch it pretty soon in the next few weeks. And one idea is that we could close it maybe in mid-November. Might get a little tricky with Thanksgiving, but Thanksgiving's actually very late this year, so mid-November would probably work. And then early December, we would bring them to CAC for your consideration and approval. And then obviously contingent, who knows what the weather will be like in February and January, but contingent on whether install them then. And then there's also the possibility of additional calls, and I'll talk about that more in a minute as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here's what we're proposing for locations. So any green dot that you see is a signal box wrap that is owned by the city. You may be thinking, well, there's one in my neighborhood or one that I drive by. Why isn't this on here? There are some that are owned by different utilities or different companies that are not owned by the city. So that's one of the benefits that we've done of partnering with our public works department is they've been able to use the system we have called Cartograph, which is an asset management system, to really figure out which ones we do own. The red dot at the very bottom, as you'll recall, one of the ones that you approved a few months ago was kind of like it showed a shipwreck and a sea monster, or I guess an octopus. We wanted that to be, or you wanted it to be as close to Pirates Cove as possible. Unfortunately, that is the closest one to Pirates Cove, so it will be there. So we're really talking about our proposal or our concept is really those five that are on South Broadway. They're outside those shaded areas or the EDDA area, so it's below that. There are other green boxes, meaning they're available that we could work with that are on Dartmouth and slightly below in the downtown area as well. So I think we have about 10 or 11 that are available. And this does take into account the ones that we are covering and we are wrapping as of the last call. Next slide, please.
Oh, just a second, my clip shares over the.
Oh, no worries. Thanks, Debbie, for making that bigger.
There.
Yeah, thank you. So one other, and basically the last slide that I have in a second is going, and you may be thinking, wow, this is a lot to take in. I totally understand that. One of the last slides I'll get to in a minute is basically going to have all the different decision points that we're asking for you to consider. But one thing we do want you to consider is whether or not you want to bring crosswalks back into the call. If so, if you want to keep them as the uniquely Inglewood call or a different call. Steve Ortega, who's the project manager for this project, who works in Public Works, has done a lot of work with vendors. As you'll recall, we did get eight proposals. Last time there were only a few that met our requirement. So unlike the traffic boxes, which are very open in terms of color scheme and design, these are I wouldn't say restrictive, but we do have to follow the uniform traffic code. We also have to follow specific guidelines around things like colors, shapes, and things like that. Also, the cost for these went up significantly from when you did the pilot in 2019, 2020. So we have to be cognizant about that. We do think, based on the budget we have available, that we likely could afford, if the commission wants to do this, we could afford one or two. The design cost, so Steve spent a lot of time working with a couple companies, and the prices fluctuated tremendously based on the complexity. So the recommendation is likely that if we did do this, we probably could only afford ones that were not that complicated. So the fork and spoon one here is probably actually a little more complicated than we could afford. And this slide also does include some of the things that were adopted by council in 2019 around things like no octagons, triangles, shapes, logos, text, or advertising. That they need to be on streets that have a 30-mile-an-hour or less speed limit. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this kind of ties it all together. So here's what we're requesting. The theme. Should we have a theme at all? If we do, should it be uniquely Inglewood or another one? Palette. Are you okay with us using the same uniquely Inglewood palette if we do that theme that we've used for other projects like the murals? Timeline, does the timeline that I presented to you make sense? Cadence is something I haven't really talked about. This is something I saw with a couple cities though, that they basically had a call that was a multi-year call. And every year they said, okay, we'll do 3 this year or 4 this year or up to 4 this year. But it will be, we'll be doing it for 3 or 4 years until all our boxes are covered. So that's another option is that you could say, yes, we'd like to do a call this year for 2 boxes or 3 boxes, and then, open it up again in 2025. And then finally, location, what are your thoughts on limiting it to one part of the city, such as the South Broadway corridor that I'm proposing or that we're proposing? So that's the presentation. And yeah, I'll take questions and would love your direction around what you'd like to do. And thanks, Debbie. And if you're okay with it, Debbie, could you please go back to the last slide? I think it just might be helpful to have that one up for our discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tim, can you tell us so budget-wise, if we went with a crosswalk, is there money left over for wraps, or do we have to decide between so many wraps and a crosswalk, or is there money for both?
Yeah, great question. Sorry, I didn't address it specifically, but yeah, so the wraps, I think that the highest cost they'll be is about 3,500. We do have a traffic crew that has some experience in implementing them, but they also have a lot going on. If they were doing the wrapping themselves, it would cost a little bit less. But even budgeting for that 3,500, we feel like we have budget to probably do somewhere between 3 and 5 signal box wraps, in addition to 1 or 2 crosswalks, if the crosswalks are 15K or less. And that would basically mean they'd be pretty basic in design. So maybe just 1 to 3 colors and, pretty basic shapes, nothing super intricate. Steve actually took the crosswalks that we had, the designs we had, and shared some with the vendors, and I think they ranged from like 11 to like 30,000 based on intricacy. So there is a considerable variation. So they'd have to be very, very simplistic, or one that's more complicated.
Can you remind me what the material is for the crosswalks? Is it plastic?
Yeah, I believe it's called thermoplast. I believe it's like a plastic that's burned on.
At risk of sounding very granola here, but is plastic that wears away fine for the environment? Just curious. I don't know what the
No.
guidelines around that is.
Yeah, it's a great question, and Steve, and I could try to get more of a specific answer from him. I know that they've looked at a variety of different types of materials. This is the one, I think this one was picked out of durability, and it's the one that most vendors seem to work with. They can fade, well, they do fade, I should say. But I believe that one of the reasons we would pick thermoplast is that it would have a longer shelf life, so to speak, than maybe some other materials. But yes, it would eventually, usually in 3 to 5 years, either need to be fully replaced or require some touch up.
Okay, thanks. Curious to learn a little more about that, because if it's just washing off, then plastic in the water.
It's micro plastics and rubber.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that every single person cares about that, but I kind of care about it personally. So, just curious.
So I know at one point me and Martin had touched base, and I love the idea of the uniquely Inglewood because I was thinking about kind of how we've selected artwork while I've been on this committee and others. And I think one of the things that has held true is that we tend to choose colorful, beautiful pieces that I think are really fun for the small town we live in that's very urban. And so I feel like a lot of our pieces have kind of fit this like urban component of being in Inglewood while also keeping a small town feel. And so the uniquely Inglewood to me as a theme makes sense. I really like it, and I think it's really leaning into what currently is happening. The only one I'm a little hesitant on, honestly, is limiting the palette, because I just think with artists, again, if we're getting unique stuff, like telling them the colors they can choose from might be a little bit too hindering. But I think if we tell them we want bold designs, they'll probably give us those colors and a bold design. But that's me going through that. I don't know, does anybody have thoughts on the theme or colors?
For me, this color palette also means all the colors in between those shades?
Yes.
Or is it only those 5? Because then it's very limiting. And I mean, there can be so much creativity, but I think it would just be interesting to see a little bit more, I don't know, depth in the color, some light and shadow work with some of them, instead of just very geometric or whatever.
I agree. I think that if you're presenting a color palette to an artist, so you can say, these are the colors that we're hoping might make it in as a like main color. I don't know that it means that it has to be only that, because it does limit it to looking like the one that's downstairs, which isn't bad, but then all of them are the same.
Yeah.
So I think if you say like, oh, we'd really like you to choose one of these colors to implement as like
A main color.
a main color or something, could be an interesting kind of way to go.
Yeah, and I just wanted to quick, and this is my really, I'll have Steve give you a much more detailed response via email, but my very quick internet search said that thermoplastic crosswalks are typically considered to be environmentally friendly compared to other ways of doing this because they have longer lifespans, lower chemical impact, and there are bio-based options. So most of them use materials that are petroleum-based components, but there are some that are in development that use vegetable oils and renewable sources. And I can look into exactly what goes into it, but yeah, that's my very quick search just to answer the question, but I can get way more details on that for you.
I appreciate that.
Me too. So we're okay with the theme Uniquely Inglewood. I think it's a great theme. I think too that the one thing I was thinking about after the last meeting Tim came to is we don't want to get so caught in a theme that 5 years from now or 10 years, people are like, what was that? Or like it becomes kind of jokey, you know, like it's so overdone. So I do want to keep it loose so that it's an idea, a concept that speaks for our town without, I don't know, like we have this same bear everywhere, carved, anyway, you get the idea. So timeline, does this work as far as the timeline? Does anybody have any thoughts on the timeline? Works for me.
I think the timeline is good because it's gonna be winter and gloomy sometimes. Maybe it would be good to have some colors pop up on Broadway at the time.
Yeah, I like the timeline.
I had a question about the timeline. Have we seen, like, it looks like we're giving the artists about a month to get everything in. Are they kind of like used to that timeline with other art? Are they gonna be expecting something longer and they're gonna be caught off guard? That would be my only slight hesitation.
I feel
Yeah,
like at
Deb.
the time, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
I feel like the time I've been here, we've had a lot of calls that go out in a month. That's never been a hindrance. Some of the bigger projects we've given more time on, but for this, I think it's fine.
I do kind of wonder though, because it is themed, if giving a little extra time, because I do feel like a lot of the people who submitted last time probably already had some of that artwork and it was like, oh, I made this might work for this. And this one feels specific. So I don't know if a month, and that's hoping that they see it immediately and are like, oh, I'm so in, and then start working on it. But we could see, right? And then extend it if we had to.
I mean, I don't know. Tim, would you mind if we went to January? Is there a pressure to do it by December or some other force?
So the only pressure is that we would be using 2024 money.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
And so I don't know the exact timeline, but you do get a little bit of a grace period to spend 2024 money in 2025. It's about a month or so. So if you did meet like the week of New Year's, the first week in January, and we turned it around really quickly, it's possible. But that was why I recommended December.
I think let's stick with December and see what we get. And hopefully we have
Also,
some choices.
if we extended it to the end of November, we're not meeting anyway before it ends, right? Like if So it wouldn't matter if we went through the end of the month of November too,
Yeah,
because then we could still see it in December.
yeah, if that's enough time.
I don't know.
Because
Maybe
I know
December
Debbie
1st.
puts them together for us to
Yeah.
like go through, so there is some admin time
Sure.
involved in that.
Yeah. But
And that
it
was-
didn't have to be the middle of the month necessarily.
That's true.
No, we could probably do something like the 20th because the reason why I did not do the end of November is Debbie does need a bit of time to package it all and send it to you. The other thing that we did last time that worked out well, I thought, is that we did an internal staff review first before you saw it, so that we were able, and there were only a few that we weeded out, but we were able to weed out a few that just wouldn't meet so our traffic engineer and traffic team supervisor looked at them all to make sure they'd be compliant and make sure they would fit on the boxes and things like that. I would like to have a little time. We can truncate it for sure. If I give them 2 months of or a month and a half of notice, they could probably do it within a few days, but maybe something like November 20th. But that was why I didn't do the end of November, is we need about a week and a half or 2 weeks to package it all before you see it.
Yeah, especially with Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the other thing to consider is it's around the holidays. So, I mean, for staff to review, do you know what I mean?
Oh,
It
absolutely.
gets kind of messy with people
Yeah.
in
What
and
if we
out.
do like November 15th, that's a Friday, that would give a full week before Thanksgiving to go through everything, have staff
Isn't
review,
that
and
2
then
weeks?
send it out to you guys, so we would have ranking for the December meeting.
That's great.
Is that good?
Yeah. Does it matter if we include the weekend or not? Because I feel like if somebody were submitting and we're not gonna be able to see it anyway, would it matter if we just waited until like Saturday or Friday or
Yeah, I mean, we
Sunday?
could do deadlines the 17th at, midnight or whatever, and then it's closed at that time technically. So then we'd have.
And that's still 2 weeks before Thanksgiving because it's late this year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That
Okay,
sounds
so we'll plan the 17th, that's a Sunday, is when the call will close, and then staff will review the week of the 18th and send it out to you all after review.
I love the idea of the crosswalks. I would love to see them. I totally get your
No, I'm just curious.
environmental piece,
Very
and I thank you for looking that up. But I like the safety piece. To me, those numbers are staggering, and I think that safety piece brings in a whole new, like for me, that's a huge piece of this, and I would love to see us do 1 to 2 of those, and especially if you guys have the money to spend for this year, I would really love to see us do a call out for those as well.
I do wonder though, the one thing that came to mind, I agree, I would love to see them because I think they are a safety thing, and I also think we have to be mindful of microplastics. It's like.
But also what's worse, people dying or there being sick?
Well, and then they're gonna, on a crosswalk, they still have those lines, so it's
Yeah.
not like we're neutral. But my one curiosity with the crosswalks though is the limit of colors, because I think partly what makes them stand out is the colors, like the design helps, but then a little bit of color I think helps on them too.
Yeah.
So we have at least a color we can use, right? It's not completely white and black, correct? Or
It cannot be
like
yellow?
the 3, like they can use a poppy color, or is it? There's certain
Yeah.
colors we can't use, but
Red, yellow, no.
Red, yellow, green, no.
And Debbie, please correct me if you may know more than this from Steve's notes, but yeah, so the more colors, the higher cost. So it could be like a color that's like blue that's allowed, I believe, and just blue would be on the lower end. If they add green and if green's allowed, I'm not sure, but if they add like 3 or 4 other colors, that brings the price up considerably.
But they can do the whole thing in one color.
Yep.
Or another color. I'm just thinking like to make them effective, like it's gotta stand out beyond just the design, which.
The one that was featured was really cool, but I think it was like 3 different colors, the photo that was
The-
up there.
That one is awesome, but I will tell you it's faded fast.
Really?
It's not as bold as it once was when it first went down. The ones that I've seen around town that are colored, especially when I think of Broadway, like the one near Sweet Action, it's so colorful, so bold, like you stop because you see it there.
The rainbow one?
Yeah, like to be effective, like what Stacy's saying, like I just think it's gotta have a little color to
do its job, you know?
I think we can put in the call out, hey, please try to stick with 2 or 3 colors so we can keep the costs down. And if we really just put, the simplicity there in the call out, and that way we don't have to say no, and really kind of stick with the guideline, making sure that they have guidelines.
Sounding like with some of the color restrictions that might be there, if we go off of the palette, quite a few of those colors are taken out, like the red, the yellow, so that might help us limit that call anyway, to say like, okay, here's the color palette, don't do these, do the, like, it might help gear them quite a bit.
So maybe Crosswalks have a color palette.
Yeah, it
That's
says
the one thing we
white,
do need to
yellow,
do.
and red. But it says in a way that could be confused with traffic control devices. So it might not be that you can't use those colors, because the fork and spin one is
That's
white.
completely white and
Oh,
black, right?
yeah.
That's interesting.
So I think it's is related to being confused with traffic control. So I don't know that it's completely the colors.
But we did
That makes
have,
sense.
oh, sorry, we did have 2 signal wraps submitted this last go rounds that were done in black and white, and traffic did say that could not use those because of the black and white.
If I remember correctly from 2019, because I was part of that group, that because the Forks and Spoons resembled so much of a crosswalk, having those lines in it anyway, that was one of the reasons that,
I was okay.
not 100% sure, but I remember there being something about, and we weren't using it like it was off of Broadway, we weren't using it across Broadway.
Yeah, because it's not on it. It's like
parallel.
and it runs with a light.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Is it Gerard?
Mhm.
Did you say, Tim, that one was really complicated and would have been expensive, even though it's one color?
The forks and
Yeah.
yeah, so that was just my guess, but kind of based on what Steve had found in terms of basically cut, I guess I'd call them cut shapes. So things that are very simplistic, like that are boxy, I guess cost less. So something like a fork where you're cutting grooves out, that cutting would cost more.
Okay. Although we can't use octagons, triangles, or shapes, so.
Right.
Circles.
Yeah.
The one
I
that
love
was at,
this call.
sorry,
No, I said I
yeah,
love
the
this
one that
call.
was
This
at
call's gonna be
Gerard
really.
was, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
The one that was at Gerard was kind of, it was not geometric, like, I think it was kind of swirly, wasn't it? Had kind of curved lines in it, and it was like purple and green, if I remember right. I know that the downtown development wants to put something similar back right there.
That's a good question, Martin. So where would that one fall? So like, would that be like one of the more expensive ones? That would be pretty pricey, right? Because
Yeah,
that one's a
based
lot
off
of
of-
colors and a lot of movement,
Right.
but it is beautiful. That one, like, you stop because you see it, it's so clear. So I heard though, the goal is maybe doing a call for 2 to 3 of those this year before.
Well, I think he said we
that's
had
what-
1 or 2 for those, and then 3 to 5 signal wraps is what
3 to
they
5.
said.
So then cadence, do we want to do the cadence? Should there be a once a year call, multi-year call?
I think that's all based on, is this a continued budget, right? Does this, I would love to see a continued call. I would love to have all the wraps done. But Tim, is this going to be a budget that you all always have?
Yeah, so unfortunately with budget we can never say always. But I haven't heard anything otherwise. So Christina, I do think we're on track to receive another 100,000 for placemaking next year. Do you know if that's correct, Christina?
I believe so, yes.
But that also includes a variety of other projects. These are so, I guess I would say in the long scheme of the budget, 3,500 is pretty minimal, and that's the top cost. They often could be cheaper than that. So I'd say in 2025 we're likely I hate to say safe, but we're likely relatively safe to do 3 to 5 again. After that, it's hard to know.
I do think in the sense of, again, keeping the art unique, having a cadence of once a year brings in different artists, and as different people come in and out of Inglewood, that kind of gives different submissions, and to me that's nice because then we get variety and not just the same folks and the same submissions every time. So I would probably recommend once a year, but I also know sometimes when we have the money and we have the availability to place art, we want to place it. So that's awesome. Any other thoughts on that?
I agree, once a year, I like that logic of inviting new people to come. And I think you can see, especially like thinking of like pandemic, how much styles might change from year to year, just being able to like have a refresher of, you know, whatever the current mood is, I think is a great idea.
So it sounds like we're mostly leaning towards once a year, but Tim, with that being said, like sometimes when you have the money, it's like great to do the project. So I think there's flexibility within that. And then
Okay.
location, should wraps be limited to one part of the city, such as South Broadway?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah,
I
no.
think you can put them anywhere you want.
Yeah, I think the more we, again, make Inglewood unique and make sure all parts are represented, that's really important. Although dressing up Broadway is a good idea, so I think we should start with Broadway, but plenty of parts of the city that need love, so.
Since these ones though all have a theme kind of more than the rest of them, I do wonder if placing them a little bit more sporadically rather than all right in a row might be interesting. Or if they're all kind of in the same color palette, is it better to have them in a straight line so that you're like, oh, seeing these colors leading you into downtown? I'm just, you know, I feel like there's two ways to go about it, both kind of for different reasons.
Yeah, I'm not, I think for me, the color palette is really limiting, but if the city really wants the color palette, then I think what you're suggesting makes sense of like having them all kind of grouped together, so that's like, you know.
To create kind of a corridor.
A corridor of color, yeah.
Or we don't go that way and have them all
Sporadically placed.
I think they could be also decided once we see the designs and that we like, and we can think of where they could be placed, depending on the map that is the green dots. One could be more floral, so it could be next to the park, or whatever, depending on the theme.
Yeah.
like we did last time, kind of pick and choose.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have to be pre-decided where they're going?
Tim, do they have to be pre-decided?
No, so the way we handled it last time for the 7 was, you know, we brought the ideas to you that we received from artists, and then we got some direction from the CAC around, like for example, the one I used about the shipwreck. You said, oh, you'd like that to be near Pirates Cove. So no, they don't. The only thing is, of course, the more we put on, the fewer options we'll have. So, um, and sometimes though, I mean, I guess one idea we could put in the application if you wanted to see it is we could put the map as part of the application, and we could basically have a question like, are you applying for this to go anywhere? Yes or no? If no, you know, please identify the specific location you'd like to see it at. So we could ask the artist, like, because there is a possibility, right? They could design one that they really want to see for whatever reason close to a particular area.
I'm open to that.
Yeah, like the neighborhood themes.
Like the neighborhood themes, like uniquely this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That sounds good. Martin, do you have anything to add online or thoughts?
I like the idea of it going on South Broadway, just because like Broadway doesn't get that much love a lot of times. So, but I would like the idea of it being flexible.
So maybe we start with the South Broadway location, uniquely Inglewood. They can let us know if they have an area, knowing a disclaimer they may not get it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how does that sound, Tim?
Fantastic. Yeah.
Folks over here?
Cool.
Yeah, good?
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Christina and Debbie, as I'll be away, I'll be asking Steve to follow up with you on the next steps, but I'm not sure if I brought this up, but unfortunately I'm going to miss the event. I'm sorry that I won't be there on the 15th. However, how would you feel about that being the launch date and kind of maybe bringing it up at the event that like we've opened this new call today?
That'd be great. Love it.
A great idea.
Cool.
Yeah, be great.
Well, thank you all for your time. Really appreciate your engagement in this, where we've all, as I said, learned a lot, and I've learned a lot personally, and I think this has been a great collaboration internally with some departments as well as with you and some outside boards. And so I'm just really excited to see how this program grows. So thank you for your support and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. So call for mural artist update.
So we put out a call for the wall over at Malley. You may have seen it on social media. That has closed, and I actually have a meeting tomorrow with the staff in communications who did the call. And they're kind of helping us with it. So I have not had a count of how many people applied, but I know it was very popular in social media. So hopefully got quite a few. I'll find out more tomorrow and how they want to proceed with the submissions. So we'll keep you updated as this goes along, but kind of exciting. That wall at Malley gets tagged a lot. So hoping that if we paint it nice, people will respect it.
Nice. That'll be lovely. Median art update.
So both artists for Rainbow Point and Lunar Hampton are getting stamp of approvals right now. So we are waiting to see how the stamp of approval for Lunar Hampton does. The engineers kind of questioning the art pad and all that, but we said proceed with, with the stamp of approval, see how it comes back, and then we'll proceed from there. I mean, we have to look at something different, and we've requested some information or some help from Public Works, measurements of the median and a scale drawing, so still waiting on that. That's where we're at right now.
Your perseverance is commendable. Great. Okay, upcoming events.
We're down to less than one handful.
Yay!
It's super exciting. We have Trunk or Treat coming up on October 19th, and then we will have the Turkey Fest, then the market and tree lighting at the same time but differently from Holiday Express. So we share one day because we only like the tree ones. But there'll be the 4 nights for Holiday Express. So I think tickets might have opened this
Need to
week.
go
Did they
until
really?
Monday.
Okay.
They open Monday? You gotta tell me these things.
It said, I heard it was October 1st
It's very serious.
in the Citizen or something.
So Monday? You think it's
But Monday safely,
Monday safely? There'll still be tickets on Monday, so we're good.
maybe, just kidding.
Maybe.
I'm just kidding.
There's one year I didn't buy them in time and it was really sad.
I mean, you know a few people, so I bet we can
We
figure
are
something
gonna
out.
solve tickets there, because there are families that don't know that you're supposed to get tickets in advance, and we hate turning families, especially with little kids, away. So you will be able to purchase tickets at the event, but would recommend purchasing tickets in advance if you can.
I'll get them Monday. I'm on.
So, and then for Trunk or Treat, it's of course a free event too, but we did reserve the last half hour for the people that don't reserve a time slot, because we do ask that everyone go on and reserve a time slot. And we have a ton of vendors coming to have different, to give out different candies and have different booths. And so that's going to be exciting. And then the Turkey Fest, we have even more turkeys to give out this year, so that's exciting as well. And then, of course, changing up the market and tree lighting with having the market here at the city center on the 2nd floor versus Malley, and it's in December, not November. So excited to see how that goes. And then, of course, the tree lighting and visits with Santa, I think, are going to be at the Guild. So a lot of fun new stuff this year, and then we're all getting our dates together for next year. So, and then Holiday Express, more lights every year. I always say the most lights ever, because I know we get more every year, and that's super exciting. And I know she has a ton of different things going on with that as well. So.
And to confirm, 9 a.m. Monday morning, tickets go on sale for Holiday Express. And then Turkey Fest is for families in need. So do they have to pre-register for that?
Yes, so the form for that is gonna open on, I believe it's the 15th. Amanda and I talked about that this morning. So they will need to complete a form, and just so that we can benefit as many families as possible, we're asking for 1 turkey per household, 1 meal kit per household. And then they will come and pick it up here in the circle. And so, yeah, anyone that you know in need, and please let them.
They can sign up on the website.
Mm-hmm. It will be online. It will be online, or they can always contact me as well. We didn't want to put it out on the city website until it was closer, because otherwise they'll be gone in no time flat, and anyone from anywhere can sign up. And so we really want to keep them as local as we can to serve our community first.
I was gonna say, so I'm gonna shamelessly promote this event I've been working on. So Clayton, we're doing this it's National Bike and Roll to School Day. So we've been working on organizing this event. Also, I still need volunteers. So if you're bored on a Wednesday morning at 7:20, I could use your help. But it might be nice to give out flyers to families as they're walking in, if you want us to. If you have flyers, or if it's too soon, no big deal. But I was like, I could hand out.
When's the walk and roll?
It's the walk and roll is on next Wednesday in the morning. So, and we will have, the wellness committee will be there with a booth. So I'm like, in theory, they could hand out stuff if there's
Yeah,
events
it just
you want us to.
unfortunately won't be ready. I leave on Friday and I'm gone all next week in training. And again, we're the form, like we're just getting that. So unfortunately, sorry, but I will definitely, I always reach out to the schools and stuff too. It is really hard with that event because we have a limited amount, and so we have to be kind of strategic about how we promote it, especially with prices the way they are this year. Anybody that's gone grocery shopping, you know, Christina and I were just talking about McDonald's prices beforehand. So yeah, so we want to give as many as we can. We want to keep as many local as we can. But yeah, it's a weird mix. But and then I also wanted to let everyone that we had the Homeless Connect event last week, and it was a huge success. And so that's always great too. But that is it for events.
I'll be sending a text tonight. Our staff's choice, anything else?
No updates.
Communications just sent out the link to vote for the student art calendar for next year. So I will forward that to you guys in the morning. So go in and rate. There's 51 pieces of art. There's some great ones.
Cool.
They're all great.
Do they select 12 or do they do 13 for front and back?
I think sometimes it depends on ties and stuff like that, or if they can kind of pull them in together.
Cool.
Commissioner's choice, do you all have anything? Again, walk and roll next week. If you want to come, I need some crossing guards. Anyway. Cool, that's all I have. Nothing else. And then I guess we're adjourned. Awesome, thanks.
Mark, Marbeth.
Oh,
you
Mark,
guys-
yeah. Okay.
Nope, all good.
All right, thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
I can probably help with your